Okay, so apologies on the quality of this one. This is actually my 5th time recording this video. So I'm hoping this one actually turns out. So as we're looking at question 2, the first thing to notice is that there's a quick note here telling us that reminding us that in Java, 2D arrays are actually arrays full of arrays, right? And each one of those secondary arrays might be of a different length. So if they're of different lengths, we call them jagged or ragged, right? So that's something to keep in mind as we look at this problem. So what we're saying in this question, you're given a non-empty 2D integer array, which may or may not be full or jagged, and a row index, right? So that tells us what row we want to look at. And we need to find out if the first element in that row contains the sum of the other values in that row. So what do I mean by that? That means if you sum up all the values in the rest of the row, right, they're going to be equal to the value in index 0 of that row. So let's look at a couple examples. So here we're given the following 2D array and row index 4, right? Which means we're actually looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row, right? Because we're 0 indexed. And we want to know if 5 plus 8 plus 4 plus 3 plus 9, right? So it's 13, 17, 29 is equal to 29. Well, 29 is equal to 29. So we're going to return true, right? Since 5 plus 8 blah, blah, is equal to 29. Notice in this example, this row, if the row index had been if the row index had been 2, there's only 2 elements to sum over. Here we had 5 elements to sum over. In the second example, we are given a full array, and we're given the row index of 2, and we want to know whether 18 plus 21, 18 plus 21 is 20, 18 plus 3 is 21, sorry about that, is equal to 51. Well, is 21 equal to 51? No, so we're going to return false. So what is it exactly that we're trying to do here, right? We sort of already talked about it, but we want to know if ARR40, which is this guy, right, is equal to ARR1 41 plus ARR42 plus ARR43 plus AR, all the way up, right? Until we get to, in this case, 5, right? Well, what is 5 here, right? We know there's 6 things in that row, so 5 is the last element, so it's actually ARR4.length minus 1, right? Okay, so our task is to design a Java method is first in row sum that takes as input a 2D array, right, and an integer representing the row index, and it returns a Boolean that corresponds to whether or not the first element in a given row is equal to the sum of the other elements or not, right? So let's start putting the problem together, and let's think about how we're going to solve it. So the first thing is to sum all of the elements in ARR row other than 0, other than the 0th. And then we're going to compare the sum with the 0th element. Here, the 0th element is actually ARR row 0, right? That's what we mean by the 0th element of the row. Okay, so how do we calculate the sum over the row? Well, the first thing is we need an integer to store the value. And notice, even though Java initializes integers to 0 automatically, I usually find it to be a good idea to go ahead and initialize it to 0 anyway, just in case. And then how are we going to sum over a group of elements in a row? Well, we're going to use some sort of loop, right? In this case, probably a for loop. Right? And always open and close your curly braces at the same time. But what's wrong with this for loop as I've set it up? Well, the first thing is it's actually looping over the number of rows. The number of rows might not be equal to the number of things in that row, right? So we actually need the number of things in row.length. And we want to exclude the 0th element. So we need to start that loop at 1. Okay, and then once we know how to index everything, right? How are we going to index each ith element? Well, it's going to be ARR row I. And then what do we do with it? Well, we're just going to add it to the sum. Is that everything we need to do to calculate the sum of the values in the row? Yeah, that's it, right? We're just going through all of the elements other than the first one and adding them to the sum. And now we need to compare the sum. So at some point we need to compare the sum with that. And are we asking whether it's greater than, equal than, or greater than, less than? We're asking whether or not it's equal to. And then we need to return true if that statement is true, false if that statement is false. So we're going to put that probably in an if statement, right? An if else. And if it's true, we're going to return true. If it's false, we're going to return false. And there we go. But is that the easiest way we can write that? Well, all we're doing is basically saying if this is true, then we're returning true. If this is false, then we're returning false. So why can't we just do this? Right? That's also correct. Because this, in and of itself, is a Boolean. So all we need to do is return that Boolean as the output of our method. Both of those answers are correct, right? And actually both of them, if you look, have the same running time, right? Because those are just constant operations. But this one might be a little bit easier to read. Right? And it's more in the spirit of the problem. Okay, so let's hope that this audio setup that I have is working and we can move on to question number 3.